Hey there, my name is Lexisspeech and I'll be talking to you today about leadership and interpersonal communication. So what is interpersonal communication? McIntosh defined it as a complex activity involving words, body language, voice tone and volume, the topic under discussion, and prejudgments that people bring to the topic, and the communication history between participants in the discussion. So why is that important? Communication is only effective if the listener really understands what the speaker is saying well enough to where they can repeat the meaning back to them. Sometimes it may not be evident if the listener understood until they either act or don't act on what the speaker said. So the old phrase, in one ear and out the other, we're trying to avoid that. We don't want any delay or any misunderstandings, so we want to make sure from the very beginning that the listener understands what the speaker is saying. So I'm going to ask, has anybody had a personal encounter this week, like an interaction maybe with your boss? Show me your hands. Okay, what about a subordinate for any of you that are in management? Okay. Does anyone have an example of a misunderstanding that's happened to you this week with a coworker that you'd like to share? No? Okay. So I'll give you my own personal encounter. This week at work, like I said, I work in a hospital, so I'm a charge nurse, and a nurse that was working under me had gotten orders from a doctor to move her patient from the ICU out to a floor. Well, he had told her, do not move the patient until their blood count is 7 or greater. She went ahead, she just knew, it was going to be greater than 7, wasn't too worried about it, put in the orders to move. Patient gets a bed, her lab results come back, and it's less than 7. So she can't move this patient out. The bed desk group, who decides, next patient to come to the ICU, has already put a patient coming to this new bed. So now we have to keep this person in the ICU, and patient number 2 doesn't have this ICU bed, so they have to be reassigned. Luckily, that was something that we were able to work out, but it's just one of those things, if she would not have went ahead and put those orders in, then we wouldn't have had this kind of controversy. Okay, so communication and leadership. I assume most of you already have some kind of degree that will bump you. Most of you have an occupation, and this degree will maybe just bump you up a little bit. I have my ASN in nursing, so I'm an RN, and this BSN will just give me a little bit of a pay raise, help me if I ever want a management job. It makes me look better. It doesn't really change my job description now, but it's just kind of one of those check marks to check off. So I know some of you, you might not be a leader at your job, but you're a leader in your community, your friend group, or your family. So let's think about how you got into this position in the first place. You probably didn't just fall into it. You have something that makes you qualified, or possible experience, or do you have some above average skill? How have your followers responded to you? Do you deal with a lot of controversy or disobedience? Think about why this may be occurring if that's the case. Do they seem to do their jobs correctly in a timely manner? You want to convey to your listener your actual meaning and have them understand what you're saying, and you want them to want to do what you're asking them to do. So it's important for a leadership to have great communication skills. So to gain followers, you must have their trust. If they don't think you're willing to do something or you're looking out for them, they're not going to listen to you. They need to understand what your intentions are. They don't want to do anything if it seems like it might be in bad will, or if they just don't understand what you're saying. They need to know what's expected of them. You need to give your followers clear guidelines, and they want to be included. This is part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's for a person to feel like they're included or like they're part of a team. So I show you this picture of Hitler, not to convince you that Hitler was this wonderful human being, but to show you that being a good communicator can get you into places you never thought possible. I think we can all agree that he was a pretty deplorable human being, but he obviously had some incredible communication skills to convince an entire country to participate in the genocide of 6 million Jews. Not his good looks, not his morals, his public speaking skills. And Pierce said, leaders see what is needed and inspire others to take action to affect change. So what are some components of communication? One, we have nonverbal communication. This body language, hand gestures, smiling, frowning, pointing, and sometimes even just the way you walk. We also have rewarding and reinforcing, and it's no surprise that people like to be rewarded. We can see this even in little kids. The next is questioning. Seriously, we couldn't have communication if people didn't have questions. If you understood everything somebody was saying to you the first time, then that'd be a little freaky, you know? There's no way you can know what somebody's thinking all the time. Reflection is similar to questioning, but instead of the interviewer asking questions, they make statements and the interviewee expands on the information. Listening. I won't spend too much time on this because we understand the importance of listening to the person that's speaking to you. Explaining. This concept is pretty self-explanatory also. Explain what you expect of someone or expect something to be misunderstood. And the last one is self-disclosure. If people don't trust you or don't think you're open, they're not going to be open with you and they're not going to respect you. Okay, so communication is not always equal. If you think about like being in a board meeting, the boss is talking and the employees are mainly listening, and then there might be some feedback here and there. Megan's going to talk about communication here in a little bit within meetings. You also want to repeat your meaning. You can't repeat something enough if you're trying to get a point across. I know at the hospital, if I take an order from a doctor, I'm to repeat it and verify. I need to give them every part of their order and let them say, yes, Lexis, that's correct. Interactions, they can be either long or short. You can have a 2-hour conversation with somebody, or you can just have a run-in the hallway when your employee's like, hey, Denise, I need those papers on my table by 2. Okay. Body language is also one of the most important components that we tend to forget about because it's just one of those things where like, okay, well, that's not what I'm actually saying, but sometimes your smile and your mannerisms say more than your words do. So, leadership is communication. We're seeing a new generation of leaders come down, and what it all comes down to is that a leadership's sole purpose is communication. They communicate what they need and expect of their followers. They inspire their followers. We're seeing an influx of young people move into powerful positions across the country, and this is in part due to their communication skills. I think it's safe to say that most, if not all, bachelor's degrees require a communication class, and now pretty much everybody has to have a degree to get a job. So old leaders, you know, they would kind of work in their job, and then after years and years, they build their way up, and it just made sense. They've been here the longest, they've worked the hardest, they step into this position. That's not necessarily the case now. Now we look for people who are qualified, who have degrees in business marketing or business leadership, as opposed to just who's been there the longest and who's been putting their effort in. So my generation, we're taught the talk. We go to these classes, we do this, practice these communication skills, and when it comes time for our interview or time to participate in communication with people within our business, we know how to talk to them. So one of the biggest things in our country right now has been Trump versus Clinton. And nobody likes either of these candidates, but I also think it's safe to say nobody knows what they're really trying to say. I don't particularly care for either candidate, but I found it so funny since the election. A lot of homosexual people have been rioting in the streets because they think Donald Trump is going to revoke their marriages and dissolve all of the legislature that has gone through recently, giving them more rights. But people fail to listen to Donald Trump's true meaning. He is pro-gay marriage. He doesn't care. There are pictures of him even holding the little rainbow flag. And there's just so much the media is picking up negativity that we can't even see people's true meanings. So if there's one thing I want you to take from this, it is make sure you know what somebody's saying, or if you're the speaker, make sure who you're talking to knows what you're saying so that you can get your meaning across, get things done and get them done right. Thank you.